What's up, everybody? Welcome to the GOOYOW Now show. I'm Bob, and today we've got Connor and Ellen, and they're going to share their fantastic, crazy journey of leaving their normal lives, going off, meeting each other literally day one, and then creating a life together, building a business, and traveling, all while doing this, which is crazy and insane and totally awesome. And I can't wait for you guys to listen to this episode. They're two amazing human beings that have an incredible journey to share with you. And so let's see what they have to say. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of the Get Out of Your Own Way Now show. I am, of course, your host, Bob McIntosh, and today I am joined by Connor and Ellen. And I met these two at a mastermind that I'm a part of. And honestly, if you're not part of masterminds, you need to at least consider going to one. I meet lots of great people. In fact, a number of the folks that I've had on the show so far have been from the Connect mastermind that I'm a part of at various points in time. And it's just a great opportunity to meet people. And I remember I actually kind of like had a vague inkling of what they did. Like they were in the online space. Of course, you know me, I'm in the online space in a very different way than they are. But I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But I don't think we ever really got to connect. And then I remember you guys spoke and you taught back at a time, which is you're talking about like Jarvie and just like using tools online and really how you were growing your business online. And of course, for me, that's like stroking my ooh, what's going on? Like, I'm leaning in like crazy. So I'm like, what's up? And I just remember like, wow, this is really cool. And I feel like we had a good conversation later that night, probably at the bar, I think maybe. I've been secretly, maybe not so secretly, stalking what they do, just kind of following them. I'm in a bunch of their groups and just checking out what they always got going on. I also appreciate, believe Connor, you're the one that flies a drone, but you always have like crazy drone shots of like insane places you're at. And I'm always like, every time I'm like, that looks cool. Of course it's Connor. Should have known. I'm excited to have you guys here. I'm excited that you guys are sharing. And I also know that you guys made a pretty big leap to doing what you're doing and traveling the world and all that. I don't want to spoil a story because I know it's your guys' story to share. So without any hogging the mic for much too longer, I'd love for you to just share for everyone kind of your story, where it got you to today, like how it got you to where you're at today. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having us on, Bob. It's so cool getting to obviously meet with you and connect with you as well. As you said in the beginning, masterminds are a game changer. Otherwise, we would never have connected, right? So that's cool. So let's dive into our story a little bit. My name is Connor. I'm Canadian. Ellen is Dutch from the Netherlands. And so for me, growing up in Canada, my parents were never married. They were like super, super young when I was born. Like my mom was 19, my dad was 18. And they split up pretty much like when I was like a little kid. Ended up growing up in a different city with my mom. And basically from a young age, I had a lot of freedom, right? As like a little kid, I had a lot of freedom to be able to go out and adventure. And living in Canada, I was next to the mountains. So I had tons of beautiful scenery around to go travel and to kind of explore and just like, figured out what life was about for myself. And then basically after graduating high school, I became a firefighter. And did that for a few years and, got to do some awesome stuff there, another level of kind of adventuring and getting to do some interesting situations, getting to save some lives and do that stuff. It was a good vibe, loved it, loved being able to help people out. But in that career and profession as well, I realized I didn't really have the level of freedom that I really wanted to get out of life. So I was, essentially I needed to find a way to get that. And I didn't know what that was. And I remember specifically, one day when I was working at the fire department, we pulled up after a call, we were done and pulled up to a gas station, essentially. Got out of the fire truck and I'm standing there with my captain as we're filling up the fire truck. And on the other side of the pump pulls up this nice white Ferrari. And I'm like, oh, damn. I'm like, check that out. And I was like, I'd love to get one of those. I was like, that looks great. And my captain, I remember him specifically looking at me and being like, you know what? As a firefighter, you will never, ever get that. And I was like, okay. And that was one of the turning points. I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how I can do that, and eventually I hit a point essentially where I ended up dropping that, left my career, left my life, sold all my things and booked a one-way ticket out to Australia, seemed like a dope spot to go. And day one out there, I ended up meeting Ellen, actually.
Yes, Connor's very first day leaving Canada, arriving into Australia, we met in our hostel room. So he walked into my hostel room, and that's where I was staying. I was at the time working in Australia. I had been working in hospitality and kind of odd jobs here and there in the Netherlands, back home for me. And back in, I think it was 2014, I left for the first time on a very, very big trip across the world. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do this for a year and then I'll return home. But then, of course, we met and we realized that creating a life together would be very hard in the Netherlands or in Canada, working normal jobs. And that's the moment where we realized, well, what if we could actually do something for ourselves, do something potentially online? We didn't even know what or how. But that is kind of the point where it started for us. That's where we started building. And that was in 2016. Well, we met in 2015, but we started our online business in 2016. And from there, we've been traveling, for like 5-6 years now. We spend 2-3 months in every country that we go to. Obviously, we spent the last couple of months in South Africa where we were stuck because of the lockdown, but now we're back in Europe. Excited for summertime here still, and then we'll move on to some more places. So that's kind of our lifestyle right now, traveling around the world, staying very often up until the max of our visa until we get kicked out, and then and then moving on to the next place, and that way getting to really experience some countries.
That's awesome. I didn't know you guys met like the first day. That's crazy. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. All right, so you arrive in Australia. For both of you guys, you're at this hostel, and like was it like this immediate thing that you guys knew, like, hey, like this is gonna be awesome together, or was he like, or Ellen, like, let's be real, was it like, man, this guy is annoying as heck, but he's kind of cute?
Yeah, what were your genuine thoughts?
Well, I thought you were a little bit of a dick in the beginning. Well, it's actually funny because Connor swiped right on Tinder. Right is to the good side, right? And then when you swipe left, you say no.
Whatever. I gave you a check. I gave her a thumbs up on Twitter, right? Like,
no, not Twitter, on Tinder.
Oh, Tinder. Yeah, I know that. Not a thumbs up either, but yeah. So I was on Tinder. We ended up, getting on there. Like, obviously, we were both single at the time, and I was swiping. I saw her, and I was like, "Oh, you're in the same room." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "We'll see what happens," and then she, wiped the act or whatever on me and put me away. So, but
then a little later, Connor asked me to go on a date, and we went to a bar, had a drink, and then we connected. And from there, we realized that we had some similar thoughts, interests, yes. Yeah. And from there, we a long story of how actually everything happened and how we managed to do everything from there. But that's kind of how it happened. The first, I was not straight away day one that we
no, and then basically at one point as well, while she was working as a travel agent there, and I wasn't working at all. I just I was like, left my firefighting career, and I wasn't interested in that. I wanted to find a way to become my own boss, obviously, and figure that out, but I didn't know what the avenue was for that. And as I was trying to figure it out, Ellen eventually hit a point where her visa in Australia was up, and they had an opportunity where the company she was working with asked her to stay longer. So they're like, "Here, we'll give you an extension for a year or two." And she basically didn't really want to do that. But she had an opportunity as well to go to Thailand.
Because I said no to that opportunity. It's kind of crazy because every backpacker, every traveler that goes to Australia, they want to stay there. They love it, and they want to find a way to get a citizenship. And I got that opportunity, and I said no, because I couldn't see myself living in one country for the next 3-4 years after having experienced that freedom for some time. So I said no to that opportunity, and then they gave me the opportunity to go to Thailand, which for me was like, wow, I can get a Western wage in Thailand, which is a dream. So I'm going to take that opportunity, but I didn't want to do it by myself. So I asked Connor to come with me, and that's basically what we did.
Yep.
But
I was pretty much 6 months into my year-long visa, and she was like, "Hey, do you want to leave?" And I was like, "Oh, dang!" I was like, "I don't know," but I was like, "Screw it, I'll do it. Let's go."
Yeah, and that's when we went to Thailand, and from there, that moment, we really started building and looking at different ways of making it happen, because I was working at a travel agency there in Thailand, and it was good fun for a few weeks, but then at some point it got very boring. It wasn't really fun anymore. Jobs can be fun, but when you do it for too long, it's not exciting anymore. There's no challenges. So while I was working at the travel agency, we were starting to figure out ways that we could do something for ourselves at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. All right. So Connor, I want to go back for a second. So you were a firefighter, right? You're sitting at this gas station and you see this Ferrari pull up, and obviously your captain tells you, "Hey, like, you're never going to have that." I would imagine for most firefighters that they're not getting in it for the money. I mean, sure, I know a number of firefighters that have done, well, they're not maybe driving Ferraris or anything, but it's not like you're destitute by any means either. Mm-hmm. But most of them get into it because they have a heart to serve. They want to, help people in some capacity. Was that your case? And if so, how did you decide to leave that, and go the route of entrepreneurship? Because for most people, that would be a very, not to say that you can't help people, because you certainly can. But for most people, it would be a very dichotomous situation of, hey, doesn't seem like that at all. It doesn't align at all. So help me understand more about that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the serving people and helping people was definitely one thing that I was interested in. I wouldn't, to be honest, it was not my number one priority for myself of trying to serve and help other people. Like I loved it. And when I could do it, it was like amazing. And I was always putting myself out there to do it, get myself in that position, but it wasn't necessarily my number one priority. I felt like I wanted to have a life of adventure and excitement and something that was vibrant and like unique. And I would have stories and experiences that I could share, right? And through firefighting, that was one of the avenues I could do that, right? Versus when I had other friends at the time who were working more typical 9-to-5 kind of jobs, maybe the excitement and stories that they had at work were not quite as vibrant as, let's say, as a firefighter would be, right? The stories you experience there are a little bit more lit up.
Literally.
But what was it? So there was one turning point initially for me as well with that when I was working as a firefighter, I was also at this last period of time, I had taken on a job where it had gone more towards the money, which wasn't initially my interest, but I became a hazmat officer, so a hazardous materials officer as well for a train line company. I was basically in charge of a team of a couple guys, and we'd go to like chemical spills and train derailments and explosions and things like that. And that for me, I didn't love that work. I wasn't passionate about that, right? Being a firefighter, I got to help people, which I love doing, right? But when I got into the hazmat side of things, I was helping now corporations and businesses save money is what it felt like to me more. That was kind of what it shifted into, and it didn't totally feel right. But I remember one specific day in there where I went into work, and my boss pulled me into the office essentially. And he was like, we just got back from a 24-hour call that we were on a train derailment. And we got back, and he showed me essentially the pay slip essentially of what we had made for that 24-hour call, and basically showed me that. And it was over $500,000 in that 24 hours. And then I was like, oh, okay. So something for me at that point clicked as well. And I was like, okay, I'm sitting on the wrong end of this table right now. I was like, I'm the employee. I'm getting paid well, more than most people I knew at that age, at like 22 or whatever it was. And but at that point, I was like, okay, I need to find a way to get on the other end of the table. And that was kind of the opening for me, where I saw that there was opportunity, that there was potential to make more money, to create some sort of life for myself beyond where I was at, beyond the people around me. I felt like I needed to get something more. So that was definitely one of the tipping points as well that shifted me towards believing that it was possible, or believing that the risk of leaving a firefighting career could be worth it.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Ellen, I want to ask you this. So you said you left for a year, like, hey, I'm just going to go out there for a year and do this. Was there like, I'll say the haters in that decision, like, oh no, you shouldn't do that. It's not safe. You can't go out there. Or was your people very supportive? I'm curious to know more about your decision to say, I'm just going to go leave everything I know for a whole year and see what happens.
That's a good question. I would say the hating part would actually happen before that. So I'm saying that Australia was like my first big trip, but I actually did a trip to South Africa for 3 months. But to me, 3 months doesn't sound as much anymore right now. So I kind of just forget about that. But I went to South Africa with a friend, and we were, I think, 19, maybe 20, 21 years old. Maybe, yeah, I think we were around 20 years old. And when you go to Cape Town, a lot of people would tell you, okay, that's dangerous. You're going like a blonde girl that is like with another friend, and you're going to get kidnapped. You're going to die, like all these things that were happening. And that was like the first moment that I had people tell me that I shouldn't do it. And that was the most amazing experience, first experience really outside of Europe for me to getting to do that. And when I came home after that 3-month trip, everything was different for me, but everybody around me was the same. I still saw everybody continuing with their own lives, and I did that for another 6 months to just kind of save up money to then decide to leave to go on my trip to Australia. So at that point, I kind of just wiped out all the things that other people were maybe telling me, or I didn't even listen to it anymore, because I knew, well, this 3-month trip to South Africa completely changed my life. I want to keep doing that. So I think I didn't even really connect with people anymore that were telling me that I shouldn't go travel the world or do any of that. And, you know, obviously I had planned on traveling for a year, and people were, I had the dream of traveling the world for the rest of my life, but I didn't believe my own dreams at that time. You know, I probably didn't really see how that was ever going to be a reality. So I decided to make it a year, to make it more realistic, I guess. And then through doing that, obviously I met Connor, and through there, we turned that dream of traveling the world, I mean, in reality for the last couple of years. So we can definitely continue to keep traveling for the rest of our life if we wanted to. So yeah, I decided to just not let other people tell me what to do and what not to do.
That's awesome. I know when I call it like my freedom trip, if you will. Right after I got divorced, I was like, I just need to go somewhere and do it. In Thailand, it was between Thailand and Dubai. And I think the reason I ended up choosing Thailand is because it was going to be ironically not that much cheaper, but like $150 cheaper is like what I calculated out. And I was like, all right, we're going there. And it was like, I remember a bunch of people were like, you know, actually it's really funny. One person was like, why Thailand? And I was like, well, because I figured if I'm gonna go on like my big first foreign trip to someplace crazy, like it's not, you know, an English speaking, you know, like in Australia or in the UK or something like that. You know, I want to go somewhere where I'm going to blend in with the locals. And they like look at me, they're like, you know, they're Asian, right? And I was like, yes, I know that. Like obviously, like, yes, I wanted to go someplace that's completely different where I'm a 6'3" dude. I'm 100% going to stand out with bright red hair walking around Thailand. I guarantee, like, I know that. So it's funny. Like when we talk about getting out of your own way, there was a lot of people for me that were like, oh, like that just not necessarily were haters or telling me I shouldn't go, but just didn't understand my desire and didn't share in my enthusiasm. And I think that's a huge thing. Especially when it comes to travel for a lot of people. And I think especially for people more so from the United States, at least in my experience, is like there's almost this fear of traveling outside the country. And I want people to realize that, like, hey, there's a lot of awesomeness out there if you simply have the chutzpah to go out and grab it and take it.
In Asia are even like, you know, they think that everything is dangerous or they don't really know what to expect. But once you're actually there, like you see how welcoming and open and friendly and amazing the people are that are living there, and they would do anything for you. But from the other side of the world, when you've never actually left your own country, you know, it's very hard to tell what that is actually like. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody that I've met that has at least traveled once, they want to do more of it. So I've never met somebody that traveled and said, okay, this was not for me. So I think every single person on the planet has to at least get the experience once of being able to do that. And I think that was for you as well when you left your firefighting career, that people told you that traveling was not the way to go, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I had all kinds of people just calling me crazy for leaving my firefighting career. My family, like when I left, they were like, you're losing your mind. And when I was gone, they're like, kept trying to call me back, like, come back, take your firefighting career back, get back into it while you can. And I was like,
and then when we told them that we were going to start an online business, then obviously everything was like, oh my goodness, what are you guys going to do right now? Because you guys have even crazier plans than just traveling the world. So that was
what kind of Australian Thailand crack are you guys smoking out there?
Yeah, exactly. I think you would like you'd probably have a lot of fun in Japan, because you mentioned Thailand was your first place. I don't know if you've been to Japan yet.
We haven't. I don't know why.
No, because I have a couple buddies who've been there, and you as a tall, you know, ginger dude, I'm like, I think you probably have all the ladies coming up and like taking photos of you. They're all like, dude.
It's on my list. I had on my way to Thailand, I looked at, because I flew through Narita to get to Bangkok, and I was like, oh, should I stay here for a while? And just time frame didn't work out because I had to be back for a speaking event, unfortunately. But it's on my list to go for sure. Okay, let's forward just a little bit. So you guys are in Australia. You both decide, hey, like let's go to Thailand together, and go from there. Like, tell me more about the decision. What goes to your mind to just leave what you're doing there and like, you know, more or less change your plans to say, hey, we're going this direction, especially for you, Connor. I'd love to just understand more about that.
Well, I think you didn't really have a decision because you were flat out broke in Australia.
Yeah, so straight up, like when I was in Australia, I got there after being in Canada, firefighter, and like working all the time. I feel like I got into like a purge, and I went out partying and doing all kinds of dumb stuff, and literally blew through all the money I had saved up and pretty much everything, and ended up, obviously Thailand worked out better because it was drastically cheaper than than Australia. So I was like, let's go there. And we went down there, and I ended up started trying to figure out business, but I also had to eat and survive a little bit, right? So I didn't want Ellen to be the only one making money in her job. So I was like, what else can I do? So I started training and fighting Muay Thai a little bit to try and make some money down there. But after a few fights and then getting some punches to the head, I realized this is not going to be a sustainable move for me. This isn't going to play out. This isn't going to be the career path. I'm not Conor McGregor. I'm just Conor Ashley. I'm not, I'm not on that level. Yeah. So, and then, from there, basically first thing we tried to do was, create something that was in alignment with where the kind of lifestyle we were at already, right? I was, as I said, I was fighting Muay Thai. I was doing yoga, meditation regularly. I'd kind of started getting into more of like a self-development kind of path. As I mentioned before, when I was working this hazmat job and, I saw that, that pay from that single day, I realized, hey, that money is possible for me. Now, in order to get that, I knew I needed to learn new things, right? So that's when I first started getting into reading books, which I had never, ever done before. The first book I really dove into was called Money, Master the Game by Tony Robbins. And that was like out of my league at the time because it was like my first book, but I was like, it was cool to me to understand that I could read these books and gain some knowledge and try and level up. And then, so our first business we tried to do was a fitness clothing line where basically we started trying to create, surf wear, fight gear, all kinds of stuff like that, and try and set that up for ourselves. But then we realized after we had created products and set up relationships with manufacturers and done all this stuff, we like, oh, okay, so now we got this stuff, but we actually have no freaking clue how to market or sell this stuff.
Well, there were some issues in between, I would say, because we even partnering with the manufacturers, we thought, okay, this is going to be great. We have these partners right now. We're going to get some samples made. We were like, we're not designers, but we designed these pieces of clothing.
They're drawing them up.
Yeah, and then while I was at my job, we were drawing these things up. We finally got the samples in the mail, and we opened this package, and we literally looked at each other, and we're like, what the hell did these people do? Because what they did is they made the labels, like the labels that you have in the back of your shirt, on the outside. Like, I don't know what went wrong there.
Some kind of communication issue.
Yeah.
With,
they were trying to start a new trend for you. They're like, yeah, trendsetters. Here we go. Labels on the outside.
It might have worked if we knew how to. If we
maybe knew how to design as well, or do things like that. And then of course we had these samples, and we wanted to continue with it, but then we also realized, like, how are we really going to get this in the marketplace? How are we going to make sure people are going to be buying this from us? And we had some stupid ideas on, I don't even want to go into all the details, but I didn't even know what we wanted to do to start selling that. And at some point we realized we just needed to learn that skill first of marketing and sales, the online world, social media, and we put all the stuff on the side, the clothing line. And that's when we got into the online world, specifically into marketing. And that's from there what we've been doing mainly up until now.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So you get this, actually, I'm curious. So you get this clothing back and it's like totally messed up and you're like, what the heck? Was it like demoralizing? Were you like, oh my God, like, is this ever going to work? Or were you just like, oh, this is just a bump in the road. We got this.
I think at the time it felt like a bump in the road because it felt like we were able to check off something that we knew wasn't the right first step, right? It felt like, okay, it didn't work, but it felt like after that, it made us clear at least on the direction we needed to go, or what we felt like was clear on the direction we needed to go. So we're like, okay, well, we have no idea how to sell this. So we started looking into how we would need to do that. And we're like, okay, we need to understand marketing and sales, right? And then looking into that, we saw all the potential there was in the marketing and sales space. So we were like, okay, well, this is the new world that we weren't really even aware of before. So now we need to dive into this world and understand it. So it was a pretty quick turnaround, I'd say, to, okay, yeah, that sucks. This isn't working, but we, at the point where we were at, we weren't going to accept any failure. So we were like, okay, let's find a way to make it work.
And after all, I think it's good because otherwise we would have maybe been happy with the samples and we would have had, 5,000-10,000 products shipped to us. And then we would have been with all those products, not knowing what to do with it. So I think after all, it probably happened for a reason that we just weren't ready to have all these products, not knowing what the next step might have been.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think for a lot of people, if you're watching or listening to this, I see too often, especially with the younger folks that I talk to, where they feel like, we've been painting these pictures of the world that's like, oh, look, we're an overnight success. And it's always like stepping stones, little things that we learn along the way that ultimately get you where you want to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important for everyone to hear, even whether you're, at Gary V, Richard Branson level, or you're, just literally just starting today going, this is interesting. Let me think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you you have this clothing line. You're like, no, this isn't it. We're diving into marketing. What was the next step? Like, where did you guys go from there? And because I know obviously you guys do a lot of, you talk a lot about affiliate marketing, or at least you did for a while. I don't know if things have changed for you or not, but what was the next step from there?
So when we were in Thailand, we obviously realized that the clothing line wasn't going to be the thing for us. And then a little later, Connor took a trip to Malaysia because, when you travel, you have to work with visa. So his visa was expiring. He took a 10-hour bus trip to Malaysia and returned 3 days later, which was a ton of fun, I think.
Blast, yeah.
And at that point, I was in our apartment, or in our villa in Thailand. I mean, you can't really call it a villa because it was just a home kind of thing. But and I just jumped on this webinar. I jumped on this webinar from some guys that I saw on Instagram, and I was watching it. And I was sitting there at night, and I was watching this video of these people that were doing it. And I heard these stories from these different people that were working online and traveling around the world. And when Connor came back, I showed him that, and I was like, we need to do this. We need to learn this. So I messaged the guy that basically put up this webinar, and we asked him if we could learn from him. And that's when we decided to go to Bali for 3 months and actually live with him. So that was the first experience that we had getting into the online world by really submerging ourselves with it and really jumping into that world, by having people physically around us that could help us, that were doing it, to really be able to realize that it was possible for ourselves as well. So that was the next step after the clothing line for us to get into the online world, essentially living with somebody for 3 months in Bali.
It was that full on submersion, essentially, in that mentorship opportunity where, he allowed us to, to actually come live with him. So, same villa in Bali, living there, like next to the beach, gorgeous spot. And him and his business partner, essentially, we got to go live in their place with them and like learn from them for a full 3 months.
Yeah, so I would say it wasn't necessarily full-on mentorship where every day they would look over our shoulder, because these guys were already making a ton of money. They weren't going to just sit next to us every single day to teach us what to do. But we got to live with them and experience what it was like. And anytime we had a question, obviously we could ask it and get help. So that was for us the first stepping stone, and that was a game changer. Honestly, I don't think we'd ever be where we are right now if we would have not taken that step.
No, absolutely not. And one of the things from that experience that was like an absolute, it totally changed our perspective and our understanding of what it takes necessarily to make money, or like, I'll just explain it. Basically, we woke up one morning with our mentor, and we were out the night before at a beach club, and we were out doing a little bit of drinking. He was drinking a little bit heavier, but we got up first thing in the morning because we were brand new, trying to start our business.
We had not made a single dollar yet.
Hadn't made a single dollar yet in our business at all, and we were just sitting there, wake up first thing in the morning as the sun rises, on our laptops, trying to figure it out, trying to put things together, trying to make it work. And basically, he wakes up like a couple hours later, comes out of bed, and like walks over into the pool. He's hungover, pours himself a glass of wine, probably around noon. And, he like jumps in the pool, goes, lays on a floaty, puts on some sunglasses, and he's like laid back with his glass of wine and like chilling there. And then he passes out for a bit. And then like we're still on the laptops for like an hour while he's like passed out in the pool. And then he comes back, and like we're asking him for some help as he wakes up. And we're like, hey, can you come like help us out with this? We're trying to figure something out. And he's like, oh yeah, for sure. Give me a second. He goes and grabs his laptop, comes and sits down, and he's like, oh, dope. He's like, I made 14 grand this morning. And then both of us are sitting there like, snap.
We want that.
Yeah, we're like, okay. Like,
yeah, so that was like the wake-up call for us, just to see that it was possible. I think making money in the online world sounds so far out of reach for so many people, especially when you are not raised around entrepreneurs, people that are business owners, people that are business minded. And for us, that moment was a complete game changer, realizing that it can be simple. It's not going to be easy, right? Don't get me wrong. Like it's going to be a process, but it's a simple process if you know what to do. And that's for us the moment that we realized, okay, we can do this. And I think when you believe that you actually can start doing it, that's when everything changes. So that was the moment. I would say that's definitely one of the moments for us.
Awesome. So walk me through your conversation. So you watch this webinar and you're like, man, this is it. We got to do this. And like you reach out to this guy because something that I took away from Tony Robbins that he says a lot is that proximity is power. So, and I think that's very similar to what you guys just said. Hey, like physically being able to share this space, even though he wasn't looking over your shoulder every day, being around that energy, that vibe, and just being able to ask those questions. Because I think oftentimes it's not like the prepared content that gets you that's like the foundation. It's good to know for sure, but it's like that the little details that you don't always get to ask someone, but by being around them, you get to. So, like, did you just straight up ask? Like, I'm curious from my even just from my own knowledge. Like, hey, like. I don't know if I'd have the balls, honestly, to go be like some guy. I'm like, hey, like this is awesome. Can I come live with you for 3 months? Or like, did he suggest it? How did that go down? Tell me more about that.
Wow, I don't know if we've ever had a question. It's actually something we'd have to think back of how that actually went. I think because we just connected and I don't know exactly. I think there was a moment where we were struggling to get our business off the ground. We knew we wanted to do something in the online world. And I know that I really remember this one day where we were sitting in a cafe and we were trying to connect. We were trying to see how we could connect our funnels with our email autoresponder. And we're like, oh my goodness, like how are we doing this? And it sounds so simple, but this one connection we were not able to make. And we were struggling for 3 days to figure out how to do it. And then this one day we were like, you know what, we just have to ask this guy. I'm sure he might make some time to jump on a call and just kind of tell us how to freaking figure this out. And we did. We jumped on a call and within 2 minutes it was sorted. And I think through that moment, we kind of bonded and he realized, well, these two guys probably need some help. Maybe I can actually help them. And from that moment, we realized that there was a good connection and he was a fun guy and probably thought that we were some fun people and decided to take action from there. We booked our ticket and we went to Bali. But I think it was just mainly building that relationship. And that's actually a big part of our business right now, building those relationships with our current clients and customers to make sure that they turn into lifetime customers and stick with us along the journey and buy multiple products from us. So that is what we're mainly focused on right now as well, having those strong relationships with customers. So I think that's just something that kind of natural came to us when we got into business, maybe a little bit connecting with people and yeah.
Remembering that human element.
Yeah.
So important. I can't, dude, that's so important. It's funny. Our company, 3 Degrees Consulting, came about because of relationship building. So this is kind of a funny story. We were in New Orleans for Mardi Gras. And I had to go to the bathroom really, really bad. And Gigi's she's like the ultimate connector. So we're like wandering around trying to find a bathroom. So in Mardi Gras, there's only 2 rules. There's only 2 things that will get you arrested. Number 1 is fighting. Number 2 is peeing in public. Pretty much anything else goes. And so somehow we find the school and she talks our way into use the bathroom at the school. So we're into the bathroom and then in 5 minutes of conversation, not only are we in to use the bathroom, but the guys inviting us back for the rest of Mardi Gras to hang out with them and for next year's Mardi Gras too. And I'm just watching this happen. And to me, it's one of those things I don't consider myself a super a connector is not something that I would see myself as being in terms of I don't just build those relationships. It's something I have to work at. It's not just natural to me. And so it's funny to watch that happen, but I keep seeing this recurring theme through these interviews where these connections are created by people. And that's ultimately what creates the drive for someone to move forward, that gets them out of their own way to have that success. So that's amazing. It's a recurring theme. So good to know. Good to know. All right. So how much would you guys equate living in lower cost countries like Thailand and Bali and places like that to helping you get off the ground versus living somewhere like Canada or Australia or the United States? Do you think that's a requirement, or can it work for someone if they're not, could they do something like you're doing without having to be in those kinds of countries?
I would say it just makes it a little bit easier to get off the ground because I would say a lot of people, they want to get their business up and running while they're still working a full-time job. And of course that is possible, but you have limited time to start building. So for us, we quit our jobs and we were able to work on our business full-time while living in a cool location, while still getting to experience life and not having to save every single dollar. So I think with that, for us, it has definitely been a big help. And I think if somebody has the opportunity to work a job for a couple of months, save up, a good amount of money to then be able to leave and start traveling, if that's their goal of traveling the world as well, to then leave and go live in a cheaper country to be able to work on a business more times and get it off the ground quicker. I think I would definitely recommend that, but I would say it's not necessary. I mean, we know a ton of
it's
people.
Definitely not necessary. We've seen a lot of people do it, from more expensive countries. We've been able to help a lot of people do it from more expensive countries, but it usually does require, I would say, a little more commitment in a sense as well, like commitment and, dedication to like being smarter with your money, right? Making sure you're not going out and blowing it on different things. So it takes a little more discipline in that sense. Versus when you're in a lower cost country, it is definitely easier, I would say.
But also where you are going, I think, can also affect the way your business is going to grow. Because if you are in an environment at home with your friends and family around you all the time, and these people don't understand what you're doing and how you're going about it, they're going to have an effect on you and your business. Versus for us, we dove into that environment in Bali with all kinds of entrepreneurs and business people and digital nomads and foreigners around us.
And then just the other foreigners who are coming through who are not even in business or anything like that, right? They're just coming through on holiday. So if you're in a holiday destination, usually the vibes are a lot higher, right? People are like excited. They're like coming through for a short little bit and they're having fun and they're social and they're like bubbly to meet, rather than like some locations where it's, a little less lively and people are like a little more dreading and like kind of dragging through life, it feels like, right? So the energy and environment is definitely a large portion of it. Of course, obviously, having to spend less money to live more is a benefit for sure of, having that kind of platform to build off of.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know, because I see a lot of people that, they're out in Bali and Thailand and there are places like that that are easier. So I was always curious, on that. I think that's a good perspective. And I think your point is well taken about the energy and vibe, right? I think maybe even more so, that might to me even be more important than a lot of things, which is if you have the right energy and vibe, no matter where you're at, I think you're going to make it work. But if it's a negative energy and negative vibe, you have to distance yourself from that as much as possible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So, you go through this journey. You've said now that you're working more on like building deeper relationships with customers and clients. What does that look like? So what are you guys up to now? What's changed? Anything? Or, how has Corona changed what you guys are doing, if at all?
Corona hasn't affected us at all. So it even, I would say, gave us more time to actually sit down and build some new things.
It removed more distractions from us. So it's made it a little more simple and easy, actually. And yeah, no negative side effects whatsoever from Corona. So we've been, lucky in that sense, obviously working in an online space, even with physical things as well. So we actually, coming up in, in 2 weeks now, we actually have a physical event still, even though there's not a lot of events.
That's the only thing that has been affected.
That's the only thing that's been affected, is we had to push the date back for it, but now it's in 2 weeks, where we have a full 7-day, week-long retreat, essentially an event that we've put together, with some people here out in Austria. And and
that is also a good example as to the relationship building part, because we've had obviously a ton of customers over the past couple of years,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of people had always asked us, when are you going to guys put on an event or like a retreat or this or that?
Yeah.
And we always pushed it off because we didn't want to lock ourselves into dates. We like having our freedom. And there's been 2 times in the past 6 years of traveling that we locked ourselves in. And those 2 times completely things got messed up and we realized we're missing out on other opportunities because we know we need to be there at some point. So we didn't want to do that anymore. But in January, we thought, you know what? We're going to travel Africa for a few months. We're going to Namibia and to South Africa, and then we're going to come back to Europe for summertime, and we're going to run this event. Then obviously Corona happened, so we had to push it forward. And again, this is the one thing that we had scheduled. So this is the 3rd time that we scheduled something that didn't work out. But it is happening in 2 weeks, and this is an example of how, when we announced this in January, we actually filled the retreat with 18 people within 10 minutes. So then you see that as soon as we announced it, everybody was there ready to join, and we had a waiting list of 9 people still. So we're probably going to put on another one later this year. But that shows the relationship building in us with our clients, that they trust us, they know we have been able to deliver value to them, which make them in turn decide to work with us more and come to this event. So that is one of the things we're doing. We're currently also running so obviously we're still doing affiliate marketing, but it hasn't been our main focus because we've been building and running our own mastermind community. Obviously, we connected with you through the mastermind group, and that was such a game changer for us. And we realized there there were not many things out there for beginners like that. There's many mastermind groups out there for people that are already established, that are making tons of money, that have the finances to put down 15, 20K on a mastermind. But for a beginner, that's a big step, a step that a lot of people are not willing to take or not understanding because they're investing in relationships. So what we did is we actually created a program where people learn step by step what to do on what we've done over the past couple of years, but at the same time have that community feel around and that mastermind group where people can connect and learn from each other and have it a small environment. Because again, there's tons of amazing courses and programs out there, but very often you get put into a Facebook group with 10,000 people, 20,000 people, and you're not really going to be able to build those strong connections and relationships with those people. So that is what we've built. We started that and launched that a year ago. So we've been doing that for a little bit, and it's been growing, and we have tons of new ideas in mind on how we can scale and how we can continue with that. So those are like the main things we're currently focused on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that you're still doing live events. You're like, we're doing it. I don't care.
Make it work.
Yeah.
No, it's funny. As we had a mastermind planned in June. It's actually called the Jedi Mastermind because I had two people that I know. Actually, it's three. They built a Airbnb just outside of Disney World, and it's all Star Wars themed. And I was helping them with some marketing. So I was going to do a Jedi Mastermind there, and then of course that all got canceled because everyone's like, no, we're not going to Florida. So that's awesome. Cool. This has been an enlightening conversation, and first of all, I really love your journey. It's so different than like, obviously everyone's journey is unique, but yours is just so crazy and different than even most people's. And I love that because I want for everyone listening or watching this to understand that, hey, it's, the journey is really what it's about. Right. And if I can take away one thing from what you guys have taught, it's not necessarily about anything else other than understanding that, hey, the journey is going to bring all kinds of crazy things. But if we're open to being on the journey, that's really how we're going to get out of our own way, because so much cool stuff can happen if we simply allow it to.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. I love that.
So where can people check you out, learn more about you, follow you if they want to?
We are mainly on Facebook and Instagram. So Connor Jordan Ashley on Facebook and Instagram, and Ellen Marshal on Facebook and Instagram. Those are the main platforms we are active on.
Perfect. Yeah. Seems to be that's for most people, right? It's the same places. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being on. Truly appreciate having you here. I'm sure we'll catch up again soon. I'll of course be quietly stalking what you guys do because I always love seeing your stuff. So again, appreciate you guys and your time. So thank you.
Of course. Appreciate you as well, Bob.
For all of you guys watching or listening, I always appreciate you being here. Hopefully you found a lot of gems from this. I know personally I did. And so I would love to know what you guys took away from this. Drop a comment on YouTube or Apple or Spotify or wherever you're listening or watching. Doesn't matter. I'd love to know. Or just send me a message if you need to. As always, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and show. It just helps it get into more hands. The more hands we get into, the more folks we can help. And that is the point of this in the first place. So thank you for being on. We'll see you guys on another episode real soon. Bye.